It is day 4 in the Moroccan Sahara. Temperatures have spiked to 115 degrees. Mauro Prosperi, an elite athlete and police officer, is sheltering inside a small abandoned shrine. He is in the final stages of physical collapse. Without water, his body has begun to dismantle itself, burning through its own fat and muscle tissue to keep his core temperature from rising. Convinced he is facing a slow, excruciating death by thirst, he decides to end his own life. He rationalizes that if he dies here, his body will be found, allowing his wife to claim his police pension back in Italy. He takes a knife to his wrists and prepares for the end. By the following morning, he should be dead. Instead, he wakes to find the incisions on his wrists are shallow and the bleeding has completely stopped. For a man dying of thirst, the physics of a cut wrist had changed. He had intended to bleed out, yet his circulatory system refused to cooperate. The extreme dehydration pushing him to the brink was the same biological mechanism that saved his life. His blood had become so thick that it clotted instantly, sealing the very wounds he intended to be fatal. Before he was a survival story, Prosperi was a competitor in the 1994 Marathon des Sables, a 251-kilometer ultramarathon through the Sahara. He was an elite athlete, disciplined and fast, holding 4th place in the dunes. On the 4th day, the environment shifted. A violent 8-hour sandstorm rolled in, creating a blinding wall of sand that erased every marker and landmark on the course. While race officials tell runners to stay put during a storm, Prosperi chose to keep moving. He was terrified of being buried by the sand and desperate to maintain his ranking. That decision was fatal to his race placement. He didn't just lose the trail, he drifted 181 miles off course, crossing a mountain range and traveling deep into Algeria. The very drive that made him an elite athlete instantly erased his margin for error. His competitive instinct overrode his survival instinct, leaving him in a hostile environment. In 115-degree heat, the body fights to stay cool by sweating. But every drop of moisture pulled to the skin comes directly from the bloodstream. This is the body's normal circulatory state, but under extreme fluid loss and heavy exertion, it enters a state called hemoconcentration. As blood volume drops, the remaining blood thickens into a heavy sludge. The heart has to work significantly harder to move this concentrated mass through the body. This is the lockdown phase. Sweating stops, and the blood clings to any remaining fluid. This extreme concentration creates hyper-rapid clotting, clumping together so effectively that it can seal off major lacerations almost instantly. Prosperi spent the following days in a desperate biological battle. He caught the bats nesting in the shrine's ceiling, cut their heads off, and drank their blood. He hunted raw insects and lizards, and recycled his own urine. Drinking bat blood and urine provided the mandatory biological intervention that was needed to keep his thickened blood moving. These fluids offered just enough volume to prevent his sludgy blood from reaching an organ-failing standstill. By day 8, Prosperi found an oasis, but his throat was so swollen from dehydration that he couldn't swallow. He had to lie by the water for hours, vomiting his first attempts and forcing his body to accept tiny, periodic sips. On the 9th day, he was found by Tuareg nomads. Rather than giving him pure water, they gave him goat's milk. It was a critical medical choice. Goat's milk provided the water, electrolytes, fat, and protein his starved gut could safely process without inducing cellular shock. Doctors in Algeria found that he had lost 18 kilograms, roughly 40 pounds of body weight. It took 16 liters of intravenous fluid to begin stabilizing his system. Many race officials initially refused to believe he had survived. They claimed that traveling 291 kilometers off course without a dedicated water source was a physiological impossibility. It took Prosperi 2 years to recover from the damage to his kidneys and liver. Once he was healthy, he returned to Morocco and ran the exact same race again, placing 13th in 2001. Prosperi's survival proves that human biology possesses autonomous, brutal mechanisms that exist beyond the conscious mind. Even when the person has given up, the body will continue to fight to stay alive.